Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thought I'd come in here, give you a post-mortem of the crypto show last night. It was called Money Electric. It was the documentary that was on HBO. First off, my impressions. First off, it's a little bit long. It's over an hour, but it's really good. They went through a lot of the history, went back and forth. They gave in some chapters. They introduced a lot of people that are in the space, from Nick Szabo to Adam Back to a few names I didn't even know. I didn't know Peter Todd before this one. But Craig Wright was in there, Roger Ver, a few others that you'd recognize. You'll see them. But it was a good rundown of the history of Bitcoin, talk about how it works, talk about mining, talk about, what else did they talk about? Took some notes so I made sure that I got here. So talked about the block size. I remember that debate. I remember when I started back in 2016 or so, the whole block size debate was really a big thing. That led to a lot of the other chain, the forks on Bitcoin. That led to Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. A lot of spin-offs and a lot of things happened there. But you forget sometimes all the history of Bitcoin, and I've been in it for 8 years now, and it goes back even longer. It goes back to, I think it's 2008. We're coming up on the anniversary of the white paper. I think it was Halloween, October 31st, 2008 was the white paper. January 3rd was the release of the blockchain. We're started in 2009. Those are the two big dates. And talked about a lot of people you can see on Twitter. I'm forgetting a few of the names, but the ambassador of the international ambassador of Bitcoin talked a lot about the international perspective of Bitcoin, the global stage, NFTs, the crap coins, to keep it PG here, about all the other things out there, Ethereum. And it talked about all the different people that are out there, like Vitalik, and how it got, proof of cringe was a good analysis of, or analogy there when they talked about Ethereum and their release of information. But I wanted to talk about the thread of the documentary, and what a lot of people talk about on Twitter right now is Peter Todd and how they talked about him as a potential candidate to be Satoshi. So first off, why do they have to do this? They're storytellers, okay? You have to understand that documentary makers, movie makers, you could put me in this category too, because I'm telling you stories from time to time. It's how people learn information. You can't just tell them that here's the facts and just learn them, like here's the 50 states and here's 50 capitals. That's very boring. But it's more entertaining to tell a story of, like some of my best history teachers framed history with a perspective like, okay, this is what happened, but this is why, and this is what led to events and certain things. And as you learn more and more, you start to put pieces together of, like, this is why people did what they did. So this tells a good story of Bitcoin and why it's important and why our money system is flawed. And those who control the money system control a lot of everything, right? It controls a lot of aspects of our lives. So that's why Bitcoin's important. And why is it important to know who Satoshi is or not? I stand by what I said yesterday, and I stand by what Jack Mahler says. We're better off not knowing who Satoshi is. There were some candidates that they kind of glossed over or didn't even mention. Nick Szabo, however you say it, he was one of the original cyberpunks. They talked about him very briefly. He's often a candidate, and he's still out there. I think he worked on the Zap project, and he's still out there talking about various things. He also, like, if you watch the Banking on Bitcoin, you'll see more about Nick Szabo and that. Also, you learn more about Hal Finney, who's no longer with us, or Len Sessman, who's also no longer with us. People thought Len was going to be the guy that got outed. It was kind of boiled down to Adam and Peter. But the point is, they didn't even mention a few other candidates that have been put out there, and I wrote a couple down. Charlie Lee, who I've met personally. I met him at Litecoin events. I met his brother Bobby, who does the Ballet wallet. I should have brought one out here to hold one up, but Ballet wallet, it's a great project, great wallet. I use that. I get nothing from mentioning that, but Litecoin was my original moniker. It was the first coin I ever made. Charlie Lee worked on Bitcoin, worked on Coinbase. He made a version, he basically copied Bitcoin to make it like Litecoin. It's basically Bitcoin Labs. It's almost the same code. It just runs four times as many coins, 4 times as fast, and so on. No mention of him, but the personality fits. But the person I saw on Twitter that I had not heard about, and it's a name we need to watch, not necessarily today, but Twitter's going to watch him, which is Paul Le Roux. Okay, if you go down that rabbit hole, and from a good story from, I think it was 2019 on Wired, I'll put it in the description if I could find it and put it out there. But it talks about all the reasons why Paul Le Roux might be the guy. that he might be Satoshi, but the reason he's interesting to watch, and also that it might be kind of, he might be infamous for creating it, is because he's a criminal. He was sent to jail for 25 years in 2020. He's done a lot of illicit activities. Not like Ross was Silk Road. We're talking about real illegal stuff, and that he was sentenced for 25 years for doing illegal stuff. And he's been a coder. He's released other things. He was coder for over a decade. C++, the language of Bitcoin, it matches. But Paul Le Roux is a very interesting person. But I go back to contending that we're better off not knowing who Satoshi is. And I'm trying to make sure my head's not cut off because I can't quite see the screen. Got the sun, I got my photo grays on here. That's an old term, but got the sunglasses on because it's super bright. It's still very hot in Arizona. It's very interesting being a swing state. That's another story for another time. But it's very, like, Satoshi. Why do we want to know who Satoshi is? It's a mystery. People love mysteries and finding out who did it, who done it. I mean, people love those kind of mysteries. They love unpacking it. But the two things we're worried about in the Bitcoin community, if we're worried at all, is whoever Satoshi is, they got access to over 1 million Bitcoin potentially. If they haven't burned the coins. They did talk about burning coins. The coins have not been burnt, but there's this mysterious wallet out there that has over 1 million Bitcoins in it, and it's possible that could adversely affect the market. Now, we've had other releases of coins. We've had other issues. We've had countries sell Bitcoin and dump them in the market. We've seen, France recently did it. Germany, I think it was Germany that was really the country that dumped a bunch. The U.S. is positioned to possibly do it again. But 1 million Bitcoin, that's 5% of the market right now. That's a lot. But given where the ETFs are, I think that's a bigger concern because they would probably just gobble them up. It depends, but that's the concern. It's like, what would happen to those 1 million Bitcoin? And secondly, what would happen to that person? All right, that person would probably be attacked and probably they have a huge target on their back. So it's interesting to look at, but Paul Le Roux is interesting. I still stand by my original name. Let's make sure I got all the names I mentioned. Peter Todd and Adam Back talked about in the movie, Nick Szabo, Charlie and Bobby Lee, Paul Le Roux. Hal Finney is still my candidate, and he's the best answer for me because he was directly connected to it. He's originally part of Cyberpunk. The Cyberpunks in California. He lived a mile or two from Satoshi Nakamoto, the old guy who didn't even know what Bitcoin was. And that's the image of the Asian guy that you typically see that's described as Satoshi. But if you translate Satoshi Nakamoto into from Japanese and based phonetically, it does spell out Hal Finney. So it's pretty interesting there. But allegedly, Paul Le Roux signed the first block or the first transaction with Hal. There's questions about that as well. But the bottom line is that Bitcoin is Bitcoin. And the market is the market. Just because someone invented the car doesn't mean if you find out, like, okay, if it was Henry Ford or someone before him, which it was, doesn't mean that idea can't persevere. Or that guy, it's not a good project, or not a good development. It's still a good utility. So whoever invented, we know who invented the telephone, the telegraph, the electric light bulb, all that stuff. Doesn't matter who invented them. The point is that the invention is good enough and will last beyond that inventor, regardless of the impact of that person or that thing. But the storyteller has to tell a story to tie a thread together to get you engaged in the movie and get you watching it. So if you don't know a lot of the history of Bitcoin or are just curious about it, it's worth a watch. There's a lot of elements in there that date back to the original dates. There's a good timeline that they put out there throughout. But it's a good watch. Just want to come back and say, like, Paul Le Roux is an interesting name to watch. Peter Todd too, but he's an interesting character, as is Adam. But it doesn't matter who exactly wrote the white paper, who invented Bitcoin, because the invention is still rock solid, the best money that's ever been created, and works well with internet money. So there you have it. I'll leave it there. Who are your thoughts on who it might be? Leave in the comments below. Like and subscribe helps with the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.